E3 has come and gone, but no need to despair, as the yearly gaming show left us with enough titles to be way too excited about. Fallout 76, The Last of Us Part 2, Spider-Man, these are just a few of the top titles we're already basically drooling over. But perhaps the best game of the show came from a company whose last big game, The Witcher 3, is considered by many to be the greatest game of all time. Cyberpunk 2077 was announced back in 2012, and the infamous teaser dropped in January of 2013. So now, finally, 5 long years after seeing the original teaser, we finally got a closer look at the game and some information about what it actually is. The trailer floored audiences during Microsoft's press conference, and the behind closed doors demo had the same effect across video games media, making the Polish studio's new game one of the most anticipated titles in a long time. Yet, despite all the E3 excitement, the futuristic RPG isn't free from controversy. Some longtime fans of the Polish developer are not happy that the game will be a first-person adventure, and even with the company publicly confirming that the game is an RPG first and a shooter second, an astonishing amount of people took to social media to voice their collective disappointment. But an important distinction to make, however, is that the upcoming RPG is a completely different one from The Witcher 3, and therefore, due to its unique design, story, and presentation, Cyberpunk 2077 not only should be in the first person, but it has to be. Let us explain. First-person RPGs set in cyberpunk-inspired worlds are actually nothing new. 1994's hugely influential System Shock and its sequel, 1999's System Shock 2, borrowed heavily from cyberpunk literature. Ion Storm's Deus Ex was released way back in the year 2000 and sparked a number of sequels, including 2016's Mankind Divided. These games and the first-person RPGs they inspired are commonly referred to as immersive sims. And beyond simply sharing a first-person perspective, these games emphasize player choice and interactivity. From the sounds of it, Cyberpunk 2077 fits nicely into this tradition. But no matter what game CD Projekt Red decided to release next, it would inevitably be compared to its previous masterpiece in The Witcher 3, and come up against exceedingly high expectations. But here's the thing, folks, Cyberpunk 2077 is not The Witcher 4. CD Projekt Red responded to the recent tweet storm, saying basically the same thing. First off, the company is very happy that their new RPG is generating such a massive interest in even its early stages, and they followed up this by reiterating that the change to first person was done with the utmost care and purpose to make sure the world and characters were more realized, interactive, and immersive. IGN spoke to the game's level design coordinator, Peter Galenser, who stated that the switch to first person makes the game even more explorable and RPG-like, and not less. He further explained that third person worked well in the Witcher series because of the amount of movement, motion, and action around Geralt and his sword fighting, whereas first person works better in Cyberpunk because a lot of the action and story beats come from within the protagonist, and should be heavily influenced by how we choose to design our hero or heroine. Also, seeing as major themes of the game are individuality, augmentation, and customization, a first-person camera makes such topics all the more intimate. Lastly, and this is perhaps the most important, guns, not swords. Shooting, which will be one of the most important aspects to combat, is probably better suited for the first-person perspective, especially in the claustrophobic future city environments that we'll be exploring. Speaking of which, the world and story of CD Projekt Red's newest RPG will heavily benefit from its first-person view too, as objects, enemies, and environments will be seen through our protagonist's eyes, thus lending gamers the feeling that they are the ones experiencing the world and the action therein firsthand. Peter Galenser told IGN, quote, "First person is there so you can see things happening up close, and you can really interact in a visceral manner with the game world. The aim of Cyberpunk 2077 is to fully situate players in the environment of Night City, to let them create their own character and history, and see if they can survive long enough to go from street dweller to big shot in the city's seedy underbelly. And quite frankly, that's a challenge we gladly can't wait to accept."
It's a city of dreams, and I'm a big dreamer.
Another aspect of the game's design that warrants first person stems from the layout of the world. In The Witcher 3, you don't spend a lot of time looking up. The world is huge and incredibly detailed, but it's actually mostly flat. Even cities like Novigrad, that do feature some verticality and structures, for the most part are only interacted with on ground level. Cyberpunk's Night City is a sprawling metropolis filled with enormous, explorable skyscrapers. The developers want you to be able to look up as the buildings tower above you without your character taking up the majority of the screen. Maybe you were expecting a sci-fi version of The Witcher, but you should take solace in the fact that the people who built The Witcher from the ground up are now pouring all of that tender love and care into a brand new game that might not have the same mechanics as their previous success, but will almost certainly have the same amount of detail and polish. Now that is something to get excited about. Thanks for for watching MojoPlays. Be sure to subscribe and click on the link in the description below to check out our suggestion page and vote on what content you'd like to see us cover next.